My boyfriend cheated on me for 2 years when we weren't official. But then he finally asked to be my boyfriend, saying it would never happen again, but he actually never cut the girl he was cheating with off in the first place. I, 28F, met my boyfriend, Jake, 29M, online. We hit it off immediately. After several months, we have already told each other I love us and met each other's families. He did not explicitly ask me to be his girlfriend, but we've dated so many times and said I love you to each other that in my mind, we were already exclusively dating. 2 years after, I received a message from a college friend that an acquaintance told him that Jake is cheating on me. The third party, Lola, was calling herself Jake's girlfriend and living with him during that time. After confronting Jake, he admitted to sleeping and living with Lola. However, she isn't his girlfriend. Apparently, Lola and Jake were friends with benefits even before I met Jake. They had an arrangement where no one should catch feelings, but apparently, Lola did. They lived together because of financial reasons. Whenever I ask Jake about how she feels for Lola, he keeps saying that he doesn't love her like he loves me. He says he wants to marry and have kids with me. He likes and cares for her, but not to the extent of how he feels for me. I asked him what he wanted to do. He said he would stop, and he'd like to keep seeing me. I decided to forgive him. 1 month after that, he officially asked me to be his girlfriend. I was ecstatic. He promised that nothing like this would ever happen again once I'm his girlfriend. I trusted him to keep his word. Lola has also moved out of their place. However, 1 month after that, I had to go abroad to study for a year. After the cheating stuff, of course, it would take a huge toll on me. I bawled my eyes out at the airport, and for the first month abroad, I kept to myself and cried every day. I wanted to believe, and I wanted to trust him that he would keep his promise, but it was difficult. Still, I trusted in him. It was excruciatingly painful to be in a long-distance relationship, especially after all that happened when I kept myself going. I went back home for the holidays, and there was a night when I left my phone in the guest room where he was sleeping. The next day, he was gone. My phone was bombarded with nasty words from Jake. Apparently, he went through my phone as well as my messages with my guy best friend, Brad. He saw that I've sent a few thirst traps to him in the past, and Jake was livid. Now I'd like to give context about my relationship with Brad. We've known each other before I've met Jake, and he was the first person I felt really comfortable talking about all kinds of topics, including intimacy. I've always had guy friends ever since I was young, so having Brad as a friend was nothing new for me. I do have female friends that I'm close with, but during that period in time, my best girlfriend and I were busy with different things in college, so we weren't able to interact and talk a lot. Brad and I had a close bond, and we've talked about things like kinks, fantasies, things we looked forward to about smashing, etc. We were both these when we became friends, and eventually, he lost his while in a relationship with a girl, and I lost mine to Jake. However, I'd like to be transparent here that we've also talked about how if we were both still V-card owners after a long time, we became too curious about it, that we would not mind smashing with each other. Personally, for me, it's not because I was attracted to Brad, but because he's the man that I'm most comfortable with. I don't want to hook up with a stranger or an acquaintance that I know nothing about, so the most logical reason in that scenario would be a close friend like Brad. Anyway, he sometimes would make adult jokes at me, but I always brush them off as jokes and eventually joke back sometimes, but there was no meaning behind it for me. I know Brad isn't into me because he talks the same way with his other female friends. He's just really open about talking about stuff like that. About the photos I sent him, they weren't to seduce him, but they were sent within the context of getting feedback, like, how do I look in this? Is this something that I can send to Jake? What's your honest opinion about this? I do know now in hindsight that this looks bad, and I should not have done that, and I acknowledge that this was a completely stupid thing to do. However, I would like to say that I absolutely have no intentions on cheating, and I have absolutely no romantic or feelings for Brad. I was young and stupid and did not know how to make clear boundaries. The most physical thing we have ever done, even though we had plenty of times when we were both alone, was a tight hug when we hadn't seen each other for months. Jake refused to talk to me or to even hear what I had to say, so I reached out to his friend, Ray. Eventually, Ray started feeling sorry for me, and she confessed to me that she knew that Jake and Lola never stopped seeing and sleeping with each other. My world stopped at that moment. I just felt the color drain from my face. Eventually, Jake agreed to see me. I told him everything that I had to say about Brad and answered every question he had. I even blocked and cut ties with Brad because I valued my relationship with Jake more, and I knew I did mess up. I then confronted Jake about Lola. He admitted to it. He said he felt isolated in his place, and she was the only one available to hang with since all his other friends are pretty far. I've always known this was a very bad excuse. If he really wanted to, he could find ways to meet with his friends or even get support from his mom. I asked him why he didn't stop seeing her. He said he already broke his promise, So what was the point? I felt like I had to forgive him after what I did with Brad. Even after that confrontation, he didn't stop seeing her. I imagine he thinks he's already in too deep the situation and doesn't know how to get out. They even went on a beach vacation alone. Jake said he couldn't back out because she paid for everything. I had to go back abroad to finish my studies, but I was not the same. I skipped meals. I skipped classes to stay in bed. I was starting to be depressed. By the time I finished my classes, COVID hit, and coming back home, the lockdown was beginning. We were not allowed to go outside. I couldn't see him properly. I fell further into depression. My weight dropped to 40 kilograms, around 90 pounds, because I lose my appetite when I feel sad. I started thinking about disappearing. I spent the whole day sleeping, but I didn't even know if I enjoyed it. On one hand, I can escape reality when sleeping, but on the other hand, I keep getting nightmares. Eventually, I told him, beg him to do something because the situation was slowly killing me. He said since I wanted to make him end it, he would up with me because he cannot end it with Lola for some reason. We went no contact for a month until I messaged him a place and time. I said I'd be there, and he can come if he wants, but if he doesn't, then that would be fine too. I know it was a stupid thing to do, but that time, I finally got a job. Me finding a job was something we've talked about for a while, so I felt like I at least needed to see him after that. When we met, I did nothing to get close to him. I stayed silent for a while, and I sat across him instead of beside him. He was the one who called me beautiful, who held my hand, who kissed me. After that meeting, we met again and again until eventually we start seeing each other regularly again. However, we are still technically exes. It's been about 4 years since. My parents don't know I meet with him still. I don't take him out with my friends anymore. Every time I'm asked about my relationship status, I try to be vague by saying it's complicated. I thought I could just go with the flow and see where this gets me, but honestly, I'm tired. A month ago during a company outing, my office crush gave me a long and comforting hug, and that somehow unlocked a new wave of emotions and realizations for me, not towards my office crush, but towards my relationship status in general. On one hand, a part of me felt guilty for hugging another guy. On the other hand, it was meant to be a wholesome interaction. I don't want to be like this anymore. I just don't. I imagine myself being in a happy, loving relationship. Nothing like this. Never in a million years would I think I'd stay in a relationship where my boyfriend is cheating on me. I have no idea why I choose to stay every time something happens. Before this relationship, I was pretty solid in my stance on how if my lover cheated on me, I would leave at once. I love Jake so very much. I imagine getting married, having kids, and growing old with this man. I love him so much, but I don't think I deserve all this hurt and pain. I want to believe that he loves me. I truly do, but he can't keep hurting me. There won't be any of me left. I don't like what I've become after all the pain and trauma I've had to deal with because of everything he's done. I don't even know if he realizes how much hurt he's put me in. He also has several red flags that I put up with. I'm not saying I'm perfect. I definitely have my own faults, but I feel like I've gotten worse because of the toll everything's taking on me. My depression and anxiety is better than during the pandemic, but the fact that I fell into depression has lingering effects on me. I don't like who I am anymore. He keeps throwing me off by saying that I'm the one he wants to marry and that he knows that choosing me is the right choice that would make him happy in the long run. I'm the one his family recognizes as the girlfriend, and I've met his friends as well, while Lola has never. These things point to me as being the one he really deems as his girlfriend, so I can't understand why he can't just end things with her. I know that he cares for her as a friend and that he owes her in a lot of ways. I also know and saw firsthand that she is very difficult to deal with. She has clung onto his arms and refused to let go to the point where she was dragged all over the floor, and she still won't let go. But I still don't think that this should have gotten to this point in the first place. Update. Hello? Jake found the Reddit post. He had access to my emails, and I guess he saw the Reddit notification email and decided to snoop and check my account. He read everything, including the fact that I had an office crush that gave me a hug. I was sleeping at his place when it happened. When I woke up, he took my phone and wanted me to put my password in so he could check my phone. I didn't want to do it for a lot of reasons. 1. I'm just so tired that he demands to see my phone when he wouldn't let me do the same to his, knowing his relationship with Lola. 2. I don't want him to see the messages I sent to my friends when I rant about my relationship with him. It had increased lately because, like this post title, I had reached my breaking point. He asked me if there was any reason why I did not want him to look into my phone. I said yes. The first was because I did not want him to see my messages with my friends. The second was, I actually messaged Brad a few weeks prior. As I've said, I've cut ties with Brad before. It has been 4 years since. Even though I have unfollowed him on all social media, we have a lot of mutual friends, and so I've seen posts about his life updates sometimes. I knew he was engaged with his girlfriend. A few weeks ago, I also had a dream about meeting him again in one of our college circle's events. I've always believed that my dreams had meaning. Sometimes they could even predict a bit of the future, so that led me to messaging Brad just to ask how he was doing. It turns out, he wasn't just engaged, he was already married. I was happy for him. We had small talk here and there like how's life been doing. He also talked about his proposal and wedding. I told him I missed him, but I did not want to bring back how our previous friendship worked. He agreed with that, and he also agreed that we were young and new to everything and had no idea what we were doing. We kept contact, but all we really talked about were small stuff, like how he got a tattoo, how my siblings are, things like that. Jake saw this as disrespect towards him, and by messaging him again, I chose Brad over him. He packed my things while I was sleeping because of reading my Reddit post, but this fact just solidified it for him. He wanted to break up. He keeps zoning in the fact that I said I missed him. While it is true that I did, that does not mean that I want to re-establish our previous friendship. Even if we did end up becoming friends again, it was not going to be the same as before. I don't think Jake understands that just because you miss something, doesn't mean you want things to go back the way it was before. I left his place with all my things, and I also returned his things that were in my possession. For a few days, I really tried to make things work out again because I still loved him. But aside from him being not able to forgive me for reconnecting with Brad, he also dropped a few ultimatums. 1. I needed to quit my job. He does not trust that I had an office crush. He also does not seem to understand that you can find attractive traits on someone and admire them, but not want to pursue a romantic or sexual relationship with that person. I admire my office crush for being smart, and we get along well with a few similar hobbies, but that's as far as that goes. Still, he does not trust me around guys, which brings to 2. He does not ever want me to talk to boys at all unless it's for important things like work. I can't have small talk with them. I can't ask them how they are, what they're having for lunch, nothing. He says this shouldn't be a big deal as there are other girls who do this to show their loyalty and that I'm still allowed to talk to girls. And 3, he needs to have access to all my accounts, all my emails, my social media, even my work emails and accounts. I could not agree to all those. I eventually said I could not continue being with him anymore. After that, he revealed it was a test to see if I was ready to give him everything and if I trusted and loved him enough to do it. He would still place rules, and I would still need to quit my job and give him my passwords, but not as strict as that. Honestly, hearing him say it was a test just made me want to end things more. You don't give sick tests to your loved one. And trust? Of course, I don't trust him. He has cheated on me since the beginning of the relationship, hurt me in all sorts of ways emotionally so many times, and he expects me to still completely trust him? Throughout the last few days of trying to see if we could still fix things, he has also guilt-tripped me. While I have always been transparent with how his cheating made me feel, apparently, this is manipulative and guilt-tripping. He was on a whole new level of guilt-tripping, saying I was probably dating other guys, or he doesn't trust how I interact with other guys because I'm always naive to their advances and how I like the attention. He also told me that I didn't sacrifice anything for this relationship. That last one completely gutted me because I've had to go against my parents' wishes and even lie to them just to make Jake happy. I'm pretty sheltered. My parents don't like me going out much or going out late. They don't want me staying over at Jake's place, so they don't know that I do. I go to his place almost every time because he can't go to mine. I live with my parents and also remotely. I sacrifice so much of my mental health just to stay in this relationship, and he tells me I've sacrificed nothing? I returned the question and asked him what he sacrificed for this relationship. He said he sacrificed getting a job. For context, he has been unemployed since he graduated. The first few years, he had a reason, such as COVID hitting, applying for a bunch of other things, etc. But at this point, he doesn't really have a reason to not look. I know it's harder for some people to find jobs, but he has also been really picky with jobs. Instead of settling for a low salary and working his way to a better one, he wants one that pays decently right off the bat even though he barely has experience. He said he'd rather be homeless than work a job that is low-paying. Recently, he has received a job offer and he passed the interview. All he had to do was accept it. I had been encouraging him to go accept it, but he was always hesitant, wanting to gun for a higher-paying remote one instead. Now he said he passed up on the offer because he doesn't want to lose time to spend with me. He said if he started an office job, then we would barely have time to spend with one another. I don't think he realizes that the reason why I'm so hesitant to ask him to spend time with me on weekends was because I'm sick of asking him out on a weekend only to be rejected because he's already spending his time with Lola. All my friends whom I told about him sacrificing his job offer have told me that it's the most ridiculous thing they've ever heard. In fact, all my friends, including my best friend who tried so hard to be unbiased and neutral, hate his guts, and they all said, as well as my therapist, that he's been gaslighting and manipulating me. My best friend says she sometimes can't believe the extent of how much I try to defend and justify his actions when I tell me stories to her. In contrast, Jake thinks I'm the one being manipulative, and that me confiding to my friends about my relationship problems is me backstabbing him because I only get to tell my side of the story. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't agree to it anymore. Not only that, but he had also revealed things to me that I just could not stomach. So that was the end of that. The first few days were the hardest. I spent my days crying and even had to file leaves for work. I'm really lucky to have a few close friends who readily spent their time talking to me and listening to me while I grieved, especially my best friend who isn't even living in the same country as me, but spent time with me on the phone for hours without fail. With my support system and therapy sessions, I slowly started to feel better and slowly started to realize that this breakup was necessary, and I had finally managed to get myself out of that hole. Looking back, now that I'm in a better headspace, I really can't believe I stayed that long in that bad situation just because I loved him. I don't have feelings for him anymore, but I'm still healing from all the trauma that relationship had given me. Still, I can now finally say that I'm happy. A month after that breakup, I've become brighter and more positive. Out of nowhere, a college acquaintance of mine messaged me, asking me if I'm single. He wanted to introduce someone to me. Let's call this person John. And since John has a lot of the same hobbies as me, he wanted to introduce us to each other to set us up. Since I just ended a 7-year-long relationship a month ago, I was hesitant and was upfront about it. I told him about my recent breakup and that I was open to being friends but was not ready to be dating or be in a relationship. My friend understood this and added me in their circle's Discord server anyway. This circle would usually play games every day, and the game they mainly play is something I played for a short time years before, League of Legends LOL, but did not have much experience in. They welcomed me warmly and taught me how to play the game even though I'm a noob, and I had fun playing with them. Eventually, John and I started talking, and that became a more and more frequent occurrence. He eventually asked me out, and at first, I made sure to reiterate and to be clear that I was not ready to date and only wanted to go out as friends. I made sure to set my boundaries because I don't want to be going out on dates when I still haven't healed properly. That wouldn't be fair to John. We did start going out more and more, and eventually, he asked me out for real. I really enjoy spending time with him, and I felt I was more ready to try dating again, so I said yes. Fast forward to about 3 months, and we have already met each other's families and some of each other's friends. He isn't officially my boyfriend yet, but we're exclusively dating, and I feel we're about to go to that point soon. John is such a sweet man, and I've been nothing but happy around him. He knows about what happened to me and is very understanding and patient. We aren't the perfect couple, and we also have minor disagreements and arguments, but we always work our way through it by talking and just being very mature. I've also made progress with healing on my own, so I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. A year ago, I never would have imagined myself in this situation. This was not the ending that I wished for a year ago. But I'm out of that dark, dark tunnel now, and I'm seeing a light. This is so much better than what I had been praying for all these years. I'm actually happy now. I can see a future again, and I'm just so glad that it's all over. Thanks for reading this long AF post.